Now, are you saying that in The Origin of Species, Darwin didn't really present the evidences to back up his theory? Or was it that he had some, but he kept saying that larger evidences are in the works?
Well, what he does in The Origin of Species, he lays out his theory in outline. He does not present much evidence, particularly for natural selection. And you don't only have to take that from me. The great Harvard zoologist Ernst Mayr, who was one of the biggest supporters of Charles Darwin and Darwinian evolution throughout the 20th century, even he once wrote that Darwin produced embarrassingly little evidence for the major aspects of his theory, including natural selection. So this has been recognized, that The Origin of Species lays out in outline form a theory, but doesn't really provide a lot of evidence to prove that that's what's actually happening in nature. In several places in The Origin, Darwin indicates that he had long catalogs of facts that could prove the theoretical positions he was stating, but that he couldn't include them in The Origin because The Origin was just an abstract, but that he would include them later in a longer work that he would follow up within 2 to 3 years.
Wow. And as an economics, I wouldn't go as much to say an economics researcher, even though I've done research in economics and published work. For us, abstract is very specific. It's easily under 150 words, something of that sort, very minimal. But Darwin's abstract, The Origin of Species, is a big work. It's almost as the equivalent of a proper paper in today's academic terms.
He was adamant about it. I mean, he told everybody that he could possibly tell, my book is only an abstract. And even when reviews started coming out in the British press after The Origin of Species was published, people were giving him the benefit of the doubt. The reviewers were saying, now Darwin tells us this is only an abstract, so we must withhold final judgment on what we think of his theory until we see the evidence that he promises will come in a longer work, which this is just an abstract. And so people took him at his word that it was an abstract and waited for the bigger book that would bring the evidence in that was not in the abstract, but they waited forever and the big book never appeared. Many of the early criticisms of Darwin's theory did point out this flaw. Even Wallace criticized the analogy. Other people criticized the analogy. People recognized that it just was not a good analogy. Even Bishop Wilberforce, in his 14,000-word review of the Origin in the Quarterly Review, pointed out that this is a poor analogy. So it was pretty obvious to people that the analogy didn't work. But Darwin didn't have anything else. Because he was so wedded to trying to create a parallel between his view of evolution and Lyell's uniformitarian geology, he had to find something occurring in the world today with the power to create organic change. And the only thing he could come up with was artificial selection. So he had no other choice. Huxley's support for Darwin had much less to do with his belief that Darwin had proven this theory than it did with the way in which Darwin went about trying to answer the question. Huxley liked Darwin's work simply because Darwin was trying to find a naturalistic explanation for evolution, for the diversity of life. And that supported Huxley's own agnostic ideas. He coined the term agnostic. And his own sort of antipathy to ecclesiastical authority. So Huxley was very much an anti-church, anti-ecclesiastical person. And so that's why he liked Darwin's work. But he didn't believe that Darwin had actually proven his theory. He said until artificial selection, until breeders, plant and animal breeders, are able to create a new species through artificial selection, Darwin's theory will remain just an unproven hypothesis. And as far as I know, we're still at over 100 years later, artificial selection has not created a new species. We got all kinds of breeds of dogs, but they're all part of the same species. So Huxley was not really gung-ho about Darwin's theory in terms of it proving how evolution occurred. He just liked the method that Darwin used, the naturalistic method. In terms of the Wilberforce debate, again, previously, the idea, Wilberforce is made out to be just kind of a clown in the way that this is often told, and Huxley just, cut him to pieces and all of this. But Wilberforce wrote a 14,000-word review of The Origin of Species in the Quarterly Review. And if you read that, many of his criticisms of The Origin of Species are very scientifically well informed, and would still be current today. So Wilberforce was much better versed in Darwin's theory than the sort of mythology would lead us to believe.